Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today I'm going to tell you why Brock Purdy's contract with the San Francisco 49ers is better than we all thought it was going to be when he signed his deal just one day ago. Going to dive into the contract details and why this may be one of the sneakiest and best quarterback contracts in the entire league. Also going to dive into what George Kittle had to say about Diamador Lenore last night, and if Jacob Cowling is poised for a breakout in 2025. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave us that 5-star audio podcasting review, and let's dive into why Brock Purdy's contract may be better than you think. So I think it's important to point out that, yes, Brock Purdy did indeed sign a 5-year, $265 million contract extension. He goes from pick 262 to now getting 265 over the next 5 to 6 seasons. That extension will not kick in till next year, 2026. He will carry a $9 million cap hit this year due to some bonuses put in his contract for getting to the Pro Bowl, going to the playoffs a handful of times, and being an MVP finalist. But when that deal officially hits the books in 2026, it is by far one of the best quarterback contracts done of the last 5 years or so. That includes Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and even those of the likes of Baker Mayfield for 3 years, $90 million, which everybody thought was a bargain. Brock Purdy's contract should belong in that conversation. Now, yes, it is 5 years, $265 million. However, when you dive into the nitty-gritty, while you can say, well, Brock has a massive cap hit next year in 2026, $58.9 million, while he's going to carry a dead cap hit of that. He has a 24.7 cap hit next year, a $30 million cap hit in 2027, and a $57.6 million cap hit in 2028. And it even gets higher from there, $72.5 million in 2029, and in 2030, a $64.5 million cap hit. When I say that, I'm sure you're scoffing, saying, Sterling, how in the world is paying Brock Purdy or having Brock Purdy's cap hit upwards of $57 million for 3 consecutive years when he hits the ages of 29, 30, and 31? How is that a good deal for San Francisco? I almost want you to forget all of the numbers I just told you and forget the 5 years, $265 million. Forget the totals. Forget the guarantees. In a way, I'm going to explain to you why this deal and what Jed York and what Parag Marathe and even Brock Purdy's agent agreed to was perfection. Now, yes, Brock has to go out there and play like a top 10 quarterback to prove that worth and value, but even then, even if Brock, let's say, has some struggles or at times doesn't look like a $53 million a year quarterback, I'm going to prove to you why the contract really is in $53 million per year. So we have what is now fully guaranteed, $100 million fully guaranteed, 40 at signing with a bonus. But there are no guarantees beyond the year 2027. So just like I told you, forget the numbers I brought up in 2027. After that year, when his cap hit in 2028 reaches $57.6 million, $72.5 million in 2029, there is no guaranteed money after 2027. So 2025, 26, 27, guaranteed years for Brock Purdy. After that, not a single dime of guaranteed money on the books. While yes, San Francisco could certainly redo his contract. They can renegotiate his deal like they did and have done with George Kittle in previous years, Fred Warner. Even Javon Hargrave got his contract redone a couple of years back. But there is also key opt-outs before bigger payouts in 2028 and 2029. So if you're sitting there worried, Sterling, again, that $57.6 million cap hit, San Francisco can get out of that contract before having to pay him a large sum of that. And the same thing goes for 2029, two very big key opt-outs in that deal for San Francisco, essentially giving them what I believe is a 3-year contract. For all the talk of 5 years, $265 million for Brock Purdy, this contract really is 3 years, $116 million. This year in 2025, 2026, and in 2027, that is the length of the actual contract. The San Francisco 49ers have given them 2 years to either restructure, redo, renegotiate, or simply get out of Brock Purdy's remaining 2 years of his deal, where his cap hit goes crazy in 28, 29, and 30. They can avoid that. So don't think of Brock Purdy's deal of 5 years, $265 million. Think of it as 3 years, $116 million. That's what he's guaranteed. That's what he'll be making over the course of the next 3 years before those opt-outs kick in for San Francisco. Now, doing some quick math, and you can do it for yourself right here, what is $116 million divided by 3? That's $38.6 million a year. That is a lot less than $65 million, Brock Purdy's initial asking price from his agent. That is a lot less than Dak Prescott's current record-holding contract for quarterbacks on an average annual value, and that's even a heck of a lot less than Brock Purdy's $53 million per year average he's supposed to get over the next 5 years. The escalating money is money he'll probably never see. Thus, 3 years, $116 million, with Brock Purdy essentially under contract for $38 million per year. That's only $8 million more than that of Baker Mayfield, who a lot of people, wanted to have Brock Purdy sign a contract like 3 years, $90 million, 3 years, 4 years, $120 million. People wanted to keep that contract, keep that Brock Purdy new contract under a large chunk of money. And if you go to the contracts currently, that will be just under Matthew Stafford's $40 million. It's just above Derek Carr's contract, who now may not see a dime from with the Saints now that he's retired. It's just above Geno Smith's $37.5 million per year contract with the Raiders. And it's about, $5 million ahead of Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. That's a bargain. It's under Kirk Cousins by nearly $7 million. It's under Matthew Stafford. It's under Kyler Murray, under Jalen Hurts. And I get it. It'll all say $53 million over the course of that 5-year deal. But really, knowing that Brock Purdy's contract is really just 3 guaranteed years, it makes those 3 years, 25, 26, and 27, feel like a massive bargain. And even if San Francisco says after 2027, hey, we're done, right? This is not working out. We have to make some changes. It's only a $16 million dead cap hit to get out of Brock Purdy's contract. This is one of, if not the smartest quarterback contract in the entire NFL. For all the detractors, all of those saying, well, Brock isn't worth $53 million a year. Oh, it's too high. It's too high. He's not getting $53 million a year. His contract really is 3 years, $116 million and $38 million per year, with some added on opt-ins for the San Francisco 49ers in 2028, 29, and 30. So don't think of this as a massive 5-year deal. This is a 3-year contract for $38 million per year. And when you put in Brock Purdy's play, while I do think Brock deserves to get paid in the upper echelon of quarterbacks right now, you can dive into, where Josh Allen's paid, where is Mahomes paid, where is some other top dogs paid. I get it. Mahomes is making like $45 million per year, and Brock really isn't worth that money, but the market's the market, and a lot of bad quarterbacks are getting paid upwards of 50, and Brock belongs in that conversation. So again, zoomed out, the optics say, $53 million, but in reality, Brock's barely getting paid more than Geno Smith. He's barely getting paid more than Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. throughout the guaranteed portion of his contract, in which then San Francisco can say, we want you, we don't want you. And if things are going well and San Francisco says, yes, bring Brock back in 2028 and 29 and 30, they're going to redo that deal. There's no way Brock's playing on a $72.5 million cap hit or a $65 million cap hit. San Francisco never does things that way. So this is by far one of the best, the smartest, and going back to that, this is a bargain. Brock is one of the biggest bargains in football. We could really be looking at, if he plays well, Brock continuing to be one of the best bargain deals in football, even though he's getting $53 million a year. This looks extremely well for San Francisco. It works extremely well for Brock Purdy, has a full no-trade clause, even if he's not good and they want to cut him. It's a $16 million cap hit. He'll still get paid some money after this, but with low guarantees, San Francisco struck gold with this deal, and it shows you why Brock Purdy's contract really is better than what the total number value may actually indicate. $38 million per year is the actual money Brock Purdy's truly getting over the course of the first 3 years of this contract, would make it one of the best bargains in football, over Baker, over Sam Darnold, and just under Matthew Stafford when it comes to quarterback contracts over the next couple seasons. Moving along to Brock Purdy's press conference yesterday, I think so much can be said about what Brock's making financially, and so much can be said about, is he worth it? Does his play warrant that kind of paycheck? I already kind of broke down why it isn't the case, and there may be some kind of fog of war being played into how much Brock's actually getting. However, I sat there on my couch, on my phone, watching Brock Purdy talk. And when you listen to that young man speak, I get it. He's 26 years old. He's been a quarterback in the NFL for 3 years now, going into year 4. There is so much to love by just the way he carries himself, his demeanor. We joke and say he's like the JCPenney's catalog boy with his, his sweaters and his khaki pants, and he doesn't need the bling and the necklaces. And he's a very humble guy. On his off, his bye weeks, he's out there shucking corn in Iowa, plowing the fields and whatnot. And the way they celebrated his massive contract was a birthday cake, really, with his family. And all of that comes back to who Brock is as a person. And it just impresses me and so many other people that much, where it's really hard to not buy into what he's selling. And throughout his press conference, there were a couple people trying to stump him and kind of trying to get him to call out John Lynch and the way he talked about, the deal may never get done at all. Brock really kind of sidestepped that and was like, this is not a big deal at all. Then they tried to kind of get him to call out some players that held out in previous years, and he wouldn't do that either. And Brock really did answer every single question extremely well. For all the bad things that we say about Colin Cowherd, the one thing he always says, and I agree with here, is you want your quarterbacks to be boring. Exciting on the football field, right? You want those. When I come to work, it is simply business, and in between the gridiron, you're getting this like machine of that's why Tom Brady, albeit, he was married to a supermodel and all that stuff, and there was some things that come with winning alongside him. At times, Tom was kind of boring. Go back to the Patriots dynasty. Tom really wasn't hogging the limelight. He was just playing football. And some of the best quarterbacks, Peyton Manning is more exciting now than he was when he was playing in the NFL. Andrew Luck, for his very short time in the NFL, was super boring. Sometimes you want your franchise quarterbacks to be boring personalities. While I do think Brock has some of the exciting things, he talked about the one thing I want to buy is a bass boat with my money now. And that kind of shows you that Brock is a simple, small town country music boy that wants to wear his khakis and his sweaters, and just he comes from humble beginnings, but it shows and permeates through his press conferences, through the camera, through him as a person. I remember being at training camp, and it was Brock Purdy and Trey Lance talking back to back. And it's no knock on Trey Lance, but the silent confidence that Brock Purdy oozes, you can just feel it, that he's in control of the moment. It's not too big for him. Like he talked about I think with Mike Silver of The Athletic that on draft day in 2022, when he's waiting and waiting and waiting, he went and took a nap during the draft and was like, yeah, it's too much for me. I'm going to go take a nap for a few hours. He could have missed being drafted. He was like, yep, we'll see what happens. I'll attack it when we get there. And ever since then, you can see that's exactly who Brock Purdy is. Playoff games aren't too big for him. Quarterback controversies aren't too big for him. Injuries aren't too big for him. He even said, nobody listens to the outside noise. And there were a couple things I picked up on in his press conference yesterday I do want to share with you today because I think it's really important and it really shows the person Brock Purdy is. And I'm hoping the quarterback he can be and why San Francisco felt so comfortable paying him a lot of money. The highest contract in San Francisco 49er history is because of quotes like this from Brock Purdy. He talked about, I want to be like Peyton Manning. I want to be like Tom Brady. I want to be like Drew Brees. Now you hear those things and you go, those are pretty lofty expectations for yourself. And that's true. I think it's good to have those things to set goals for yourself, and why not shoot for some of the best quarterbacks in league history. But to me, it's not just that Brock brought those three names up. He could have said anybody, right? But the way he talked about success is really important. And you'll have guys that get paid and they lollygag and they take plays off and they think, okay, now I can coast. I got paid. You hear it all the time. Jimmy Garopolo may have been one of those guys. Got paid a lot of money, never really got better. For better or for worse, there were certainly some issues with Kyle and John and Jed and the way they treated him and vice versa. But Jimmy really was a stagnant player, didn't get better. Whereas Brock, he talked yesterday after getting paid $265 million, $40+ million at signing, now in his bank account. He talked about you have to earn success. That success isn't just given to you because you have this massive paycheck or you've earned this money. That it takes work to be successful. And one of the biggest examples of this, to me, is him being there on day one. Him noting the importance of, I need to be in this room on day one. That I saw what Ayuk did last year and how it didn't work, and it really affected him pre-injury. I saw what happened to Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams, and I've seen and heard about Deebo Samuel and other guys that have held out for larger and longer contracts, and it really has held them back in their first year on the football field post-massive deal. And Brock being there during the pre-draft optional workout sessions matter. And him showing that I don't care. I know I'm getting paid big money, but these small moments matter. And he talked about why it's important to be there on day one right here in the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every year there sort of has been someone that it's like, man, you'd like to get them done, and it's gone on pretty late. And whether that has affected the locker room or not, I'm not really sure. I don't want to just pinpoint something, but this year having the guys done and being able to get back to work and be around the guys in the locker room and just like build our culture and standard really from the ground up with all the new guys that we have. It's been pretty cool. And everybody's bought in right now, and we're excited obviously to do like more team activities and stuff as we move along the off season. But man, it's hard to explain, but the young guys, the older guys, everybody is bringing it right now. And I think it's just so important that we're just around each other a lot, doing little different activities and continuing to build chemistry. Like that's the kind of stuff that matters, man. When you get late in the season and things get tough and you go through some tough things as a team, like you want to be able to know the guy next to you and what he's about and that he's going to have your back and everything like that. So anyways, having the contract stuff done, it's been a huge blessing for the whole team and organization.
There's one really great quote in there, and I'll read it off for you again because I think it's really impactful and it kind of shows you Brock is here to stay, but also he's here to play. That Brock isn't wasting time post getting a big deal. He's saying, no, we have to hit the ground running. And there'll be times this year when the defense, who's really young, is going to struggle. And we need our guys on offense to be in place, the receivers, the running backs, tight ends, offensive line. We can't waste these quote-unquote meaningless reps in optional workouts. And the quote is here: I think it's important we're around each other a lot and continuing to build chemistry. That's the kind of stuff that matters when you get late into the season and you grow and you go through some tough things as a team. And my mind goes back to last year and how tough last year was for San Francisco. Now, they were decimated by injuries, and there was guys, playing one week and not playing the other. There was some special teams issues that were out of Brock Purdy's control. There was some defensive problems that, again, weren't Brock's fault. But Brock is saying here, as the quarterback of this team, as now the highest paid player in franchise history, I'm paid to win football games. And I have seen and I have looked at the good examples and the bad examples of players that have been here on day one and not been here on day one. The ones that have taken plays off, the ones that have not come for OTAs, the ones that have held out for larger contracts. And those antics have held this team back in previous seasons. Brock saying, I don't care, I got big money. I want to win the big game instead. Now, of course, big money certainly helps you, but even then, Brock talking about that week 16, week 17, when we're vying for a playoff spot. The weakest schedule doesn't matter. When we're on the road against the Rams in week 5, when we're at home against the Rams on week 10, when we're playing the Bears week 15, when we're in Indianapolis late in the year, we have to have guys step up. We have to have the Jacob Cowlings, the Jordan Watkins, the Trey Browns, the Upton Stouts, the Luke Farrells, the Connor Colbys, all these guys that you assume either may have big roles or not have big roles, be in tune. We even saw in 2023 when this team was steamrolling everybody almost the entire season, but they won those first 5 games of the year. Then what happened? Deebo Samuel got hurt. Brandon Ayuk missed a game or so. There was some things that were not Brock's fault that happened, but then Christian McCaffrey fumbled. I think of the Minnesota Vikings game, right, where I think Ayuk gets hurt and Deebo was already out or whatnot, and the only chemistry he has is with Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk as a wide receiver going out for routes 15-plus yards downfield. And there's a play where it's week 7, Monday Night Football against the Vikings, and it's a cutback, and McLeod isn't where he's supposed to be. Brock misses the throw, and Brock immediately lights him up and is like, you need to be here. That's the leader Brock is thinking, okay, I'm thinking so far ahead that late in the year when Jordan Watkins, who is not supposed to play this year according to the receiver himself, which he was told by this regime, that when Ayuk isn't playing, when Jennings may or may not be hurt, when Demarcus Robinson is suspended for 3 games to begin the season, we're going to need you. Jacob Cowling, who didn't really do much last year, but was a 4th-round pick last season, when those guys are out, guys who are ahead of you on the depth chart, we're going to need you. And to have him in the building as a leader now with the C on his chest, highly paid guy who, again, he could take plays off. He can slack. You can tell money is not the first thing on his mind. And with that said, the question becomes the next. $53 million, Brock? Did you take a pay cut? He kind of answers that question here in his press conference yesterday.
I mean, obviously my agent did the negotiating, but would just keep me updated, throughout the week and certain big moments and conversations that were had with the Niners. And then he would just call me and update me. And we both, before the whole thing started, sat down and we were like, all right, this is our vision. This is hopefully what we can get out of it and get what you deserve and have earned, and go from there. But obviously we want to, make sure that we're working together with our organization and setting up everybody for success. It's not just for me to get all the money as much as I can, but also like, hey, let's surround yourself with a great team and players and a great locker room, and all those things matter. So we definitely talked about that. And then, like I said, he would just update me periodically, but there were some things that we wanted in there to protect me down the road and whatnot, and the contract and the language and all that stuff. But he did an amazing job with handling that and then breaking it down to me, like what it is, what it means, and what we need to get, what we can give up, all that kind of stuff. That's just negotiating. And so, like I said, he did an amazing job, and I'm very proud of him.
Again, how do you hear that guy talk and say, nope, don't like him. Nope, not a fan. And again, like the first clip we showed, there was one quote in that clip I just showed you a couple seconds ago that really stood out to me. And it shows you how unselfish he is, how team-centered Brock is. It is not me, me, me. It's team, team, team. One, the way he talks. We want to make sure that we're working together with our organization and setting up everybody for success. That's one little quote you hear and you say, wow. Most guys don't talk about the team, their agent, themselves that way. Very team-focused, very team-centered player, which may not mean much to you because you have to go out there and execute on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. But just having that mindset, it permeates through the team, and it does set a really high bar and a good example for what San Francisco expects from their players, whether they are Mr. Irrelevant or UDFA or the highest paid contract in team history. But continuing with that quote, well, Brock kind of hinted at there being a pay cut where it's like, we wanted to make sure things were balanced and things work. I think he really hit the point home of kind of saying, like, I could have held out. I could have asked for more, but I know who I am as a player. I know my strengths, my weaknesses. I know what it takes to win. And going back to the very first conversation we had about Brock Steele's really only 3 years, $38 million per year to begin his new contract. This last quote here reiterates that in a big way. It's not just for me to get all the money, but also let's surround yourself with a great team, players, and a locker room. I don't know if I have heard a quarterback of this regime, or even in my entire lifetime, 25, 28 plus years now, my goodness, I'm getting old, that they talk that selfless about the team, the organization, that I know that I could have held out for $60 million. I could have made this thing a heck of a lot harder than it actually is and could have been. However, it's important that I have Christian McCaffrey, that I give this team the necessary funds to continue to build the roster. I know what it takes to have sustained success in the NFL. That I'd be nowhere without Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and Jawan Jennings and Pearsall and Kittle and Trent Williams and Garendo and Christian McCaffrey and Dominic Pooney and those guys, and even on defense, right? It takes a lot of humility, a lot of self-reflection to say, you know what? I can be Dak Prescott and get $60 million a year, and Brock could have asked for that. But you know what that means? You have to trade Brandon Ayuk. You have to not re-sign Jawan Jennings. You can't redo Kittle's deal. You can't redo Fred Warner's deal. And the Cowboys last year, albeit Dak got hurt again, the Cowboys last year, and even this year really, they didn't do much in free agency. And it took them after the draft to finally find a receiver number 2 in George Pickens. And I know they've had a better draft this year and they're trying to rebuild themselves, but the Cowboys had one offensive player last year. You want to know why? They couldn't afford to pay anybody else. They paid CeeDee Lamb and they paid Dak Prescott, and that was it. They gutted the offensive line. They had no running backs last year. It was Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott. They were a mess. Now they're trying to rekindle things, but Brock is saying, if it means me not making $60 million and you utilizing that $7 million per year, right, to go sign a receiver 2, a tight end 2, a cornerback 3, a new safety, a center, a left guard, a right tackle. That to me screams ultimate team player. He knows what it takes to win, and he's clearly open about the idea that, you know what? I know I'm getting paid like a top 10 guy, and he even said today on KNBR that, yeah, I think I'm a top 10 quarterback, but even though I'm a top 10 quarterback in his own eyes or my eyes, that I still need to have weapons around me to succeed. Name one quarterback that has been able to do this by themselves. There isn't one. Even the worst quarterbacks. Even last year, Jalen Hurts, right? One of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, an incredible defense. Patrick Mahomes has almost needed Steve Spagnuolo to win Super Bowls because the offense hasn't done their job until late in those games. Now, obviously, you really run into this match made in heaven. Even Belichick needed Brady, and Belichick's defense needed Brady and vice versa. Brady needed that 2020 Bucs defense to annihilate Kansas City in the Super Bowl, right? You have to have contributing factors on both sides of the football at almost every single position. Now, some guys can certainly elevate worse teams than other ones, and Brock is clearly saying here that even if I believe I can do that, I know it makes it a heck of a lot easier if I don't always have to do that. And that to me is a big thing. But the great thing about Brock Purdy, going back into the Drew Brees, Peyton Manning aspirations he has in regards to his work ethic, he was asked, what areas do you think you need to improve upon? And there were some basic answers like my footwork. I know last year's front foot wasn't very well. Some passes sailed high. There was some kind of fundamentals, which he really didn't dive too much into. But he talked about, I don't want to be too comfortable. I don't want to, feel like I've been there, I've seen that, I've done that. I want to feel like every play matters. I want to feel like, the next play can determine the game. I want to feel like I have to be on my toes every single snap. And one of the very kind of short glimpses of things he said was that I've gone back to my rookie tape when he got tossed in against the Miami Dolphins and went on a massive run that year. And now has taken over the job out there in San Francisco, now the highest paid quarterback in franchise history. He went back to not 2023. He went all the way back to 2022, his rookie year, where most guys a couple years in don't really want to remember. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. He talked about utilizing that as an example of, in his eyes, being on it. Playing within the scheme, being on time, not playing hero ball, not having to run around and scramble for his life and not take checkdowns. Kyle will help him and make his life a heck of a lot easier as an offensive play caller. Last year saw him running around, holding the ball for too long, not taking his checkdowns, trying to scramble for about 15 yards, although it takes him about 20 minutes to do so, right? Against the Rams last year, he runs for about 3 yards. But he runs from one sideline to the other, back around through the entire defense to get 3 yards, and you're like, oh, that was awesome, but okay. You can tell he wants to go back to being that almost machine again, right? Where Tom Brady is like this boring quarterback when he was playing. There wasn't much I heard about him outside of the Spygate stuff and Deflategate and all the other gates there have been with the Patriots. A boring player. But in between the lines, a machine, being on time, being accurate, putting his guys in the right place to be successful as a quarterback, right? Brock trying to get back to that. Now, look, you have to go out there and prove it, but to have a guy willing to admit, my rookie tape may have been really good, and getting back to that may actually be more beneficial than what I did last year, which wasn't that bad, and there was a lot of great things you can take from it, but he knows playing on time in the system is probably the most efficient things will be. Hence why you saw Brock take off in 2023. It was the best mixture of playing on time in the system and also being a playmaker. And I think Brock's saying, look, I know I can do the playmaker stuff. I was doing that last year when the offensive line sucked, when Ronnie Bell was dropping passes early in the season, when guys were getting hurt. But I have to rewind the clock to get back on track. And hopefully I can plug myself back into the Kyle Shanahan offensive machine and we can tune things back up to a higher level in 2025. That's how I'm viewing how Brock Purdy is talking about himself, this offseason, and his contract. The worst thing you can be in life, and if you're Brock Purdy, is complacent. You can tell there really is no room for complacency in Brock Purdy's mind, even after getting paid $53 million per year, although it's more like $38 million per year when it comes to his first 3 years of his contract.